The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as the screens displayed the latest reports. Alan Phillips, the human representative, stood alone at his pod, looking at the data with a frown on his face. This was the 10th human colony that had gone quiet this month. Something was happening, but nobody seemed to care. The human settlement on Proxima Beta has ceased all communications and appears to be abandoned, announced the council secretary, a tall blue-skinned alien. This continues the pattern observed across human territories. Alan cleared his throat. This is concerning. May I suggest we send investigation teams to? That won't be necessary, interrupted Councillor Zex of the Voraxian Empire. Humans often relocate without proper notification. It is their nature to be unpredictable. The other council members nodded in agreement. Alan's shoulders dropped slightly. For years, humans had been treated as the newcomers, the unpredictable species that somehow managed to join the galactic community despite their primitive origins. Far away from the council chambers, on Earth, the last transport ships were being loaded. People moved in organized lines, carrying only essential belongings. Cities that once buzzed with activity now stood half-empty. The decision had been made years ago, implemented slowly and carefully. Back at the council, Melissa Grant, the senior human ambassador, requested an audience. The council members shifted uncomfortably as she walked to the center of the chamber. Unlike most diplomats who wore the traditional council robes, Melissa wore a simple Earth uniform. Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice strong and clear. For 50 years, humanity has been part of this interstellar community. We have offered our hands in friendship, shared our innovations, and maintained crucial systems across your territories. The council members exchanged confused looks. Maintain systems. What was she talking about? Today, I come to inform you that Earth and all human colonies have enacted the departure protocol. By the time this message is delivered, 90% of humanity will have left council space. Murmurs erupted across the chamber. Alan Phillips looked down, already aware of what Melissa was announcing. This is absurd, shouted Councillor Drix of the Pellerin Confederation. Where would your species even go? Melissa smiled slightly. That information is not relevant to the council at this time. What is relevant is that humanity will no longer maintain the network infrastructures, defense grids, or quantum communication relays we designed for council space. Now real concern spread through the chamber. The council leader, an ancient reptilian being, leaned forward. What do you mean, maintain? Those systems are automated. They require regular human oversight, Melissa explained. Something we provided quietly, without recognition. Each system has built-in maintenance cycles. When those cycles end, the systems will begin to degrade. This is blackmail, shouted a counselor from the back. No, Melissa replied calmly. This is consequence. Humanity extended its hand in friendship, and the council treated us as servants at best, threats at worst. We are simply taking our leave. With that, Melissa placed her council badge on the podium and walked out of the chamber. The stunned silence lasted only moments before erupting into angry shouts. Later that day, the council voted to redistribute resources from human sectors to more stable regions. Many councillors even celebrated the human departure, seeing it as removal of a potential threat. Humans had always been too unpredictable, too quick to question council wisdom. 3 weeks later, Earth transmitted its final message to the Galactic Council. It was short and cryptic. When the lights begin to flicker, remember who changed the bulbs. Then Earth went silent. The human colonies, one by one, emptied. A few humans remained, mostly those with alien families or diplomatic ties. But humanity, as a major presence in the galaxy, had simply departed. And the Galactic Council turned its attention to other matters, not realizing what they had just lost. 3 years passed since the humans left. The Galactic Council moved on, redistributing the abandoned human territories among eager member species. Life continued, and many even said the galaxy was more peaceful without the unpredictable humans around. Zachary Moore walked through the halls of the council building, ignoring the stares that followed him. As one of the few humans who remained in council space, he had grown used to being treated like a curiosity. His marriage to a Lakshan diplomat had kept him here when others left, though sometimes he wondered if he had made the right choice. Today, he carried troubling news. The quantum communication relay in Sector 7 had failed completely. It was the third such failure this month. The council meeting was already underway when Zachary entered. Councillor Vrex was speaking about increased trade opportunities when the chamber lights flickered briefly. As I was saying, Vrex continued, with the human territories now properly. The lights flickered again, then went out completely. Emergency lighting activated seconds later, bathing the chamber in dim blue light. Third time this week, Zachary said quietly, but in the silence his voice carried. The council leader glared at him. If you have something to contribute, Human Moore, please approach the speaking platform. Zachary walked forward, feeling the eyes of every alien representative on him. The power failures are becoming more frequent. Not just here, but across council space. The quantum communication relays are failing too. The pattern matches exactly what Ambassador Grant warned about 3 years ago. Preposterous, said Councillor Drix. Our engineers have examined the systems. They are simply showing signs of age. Systems designed to last centuries are failing after just 3 years. Zachary asked. That's not age. That's the end of the human maintenance cycle. An uncomfortable silence filled the chamber. Finally, a younger counselor spoke up. Can you contact your people? Ask them to return and fix this. Zachary laughed, a hollow sound. I've tried. They don't answer anymore. Far from the council, near the abandoned human colony on Proxima Beta, a Vixari exploration fleet approached. The Vixari, with their 4 arms and militant culture, had been quick to claim this territory after the humans left. Scans show no life forms, reported the Vixari captain's second-in-command. The settlement appears intact. Excellent, the captain replied. Prepare landing parties. Anything of value is to be claimed for the Vixari Dominion. Their ships landed near the deserted human city. Squads of armed Vixari troops moved through empty streets and buildings. But as they searched, confusion grew. Captain called a soldier through the communication device. There's nothing here. Impossible. These were advanced settlements. The buildings are here, yes, but anything valuable, computers, machinery, technology, it's all gone. They took everything when they left. The captain snarled in frustration. Other reports came in, all the same. The humans had stripped their colonies bare before departing. Back on the galactic capital, scientist Linda Reeves studied the pattern of system failures. As a Terran-educated Axolian, she understood human technology better than most non-humans. The data on her screen confirmed her worst fears. Her supervisor entered the lab. Any progress, Scientist Reeves? Linda pointed to her screen. The failures aren't random. They're spreading outward from Earth, following the exact path of human expansion into the galaxy. First, the system's nearest Earth failed. Now it's spreading outward. What does it mean? It means the humans built everything with maintenance requirements that only they knew how to perform. And they designed the failures to happen slowly, so by the time we noticed the pattern. She didn't need to finish. Her supervisor's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in distress. Can we fix them? Linda looked down. Without human knowledge, without their access codes and protocols, I don't think so. That night, for the first time in decades, the great central beacon of the galactic capital flickered and went dark, leaving the planet's orbit filled with confused, drifting ships unable to dock safely. The first signs of a greater collapse had begun. 5 years had passed since the humans departed. What began as occasional system failures had grown into a galaxy-wide crisis. The quantum communications network, once the pride of the Galactic Council, now worked only 2 days out of 5. In the Council's emergency session chamber, tempers flared hot as the failing air circulation system made the room uncomfortably warm. 3 more trade hubs have gone dark this week, reported a sweating Exolian delegate. Ships are getting lost in deep space without navigation beacons. The Mercantile Guild estimates losses at billions of credits. The council leader pounded a fist on the table. Who is responsible for these failures? Is this sabotage? Linda Reeves stood at the back of the room, clutching her datapad. After 2 years of warnings, the council had finally invited her to speak. She stepped forward when called. "This is not sabotage," Linda said clearly. "This is the result of neglect. I've been studying the archives. Do you know who designed the Quantum Communications Network? A human engineer named Peter Collins. The network needs regular updates to its quantum algorithms every 5 years. The last update was right before the humans left." Murmurs spread through the chamber. A Vixeri representative stood up, his 4 arms gesturing angrily. "The humans planned this. They built our systems to fail." Linda shook her head. "No, they built systems that required maintenance. They told us this. We didn't listen." Outside the council chamber, ordinary citizens across thousands of worlds faced the growing crisis. On the commerce planet Nexus Prime, food shipments arrived spoiled because refrigeration systems failed during transport. On Galaran, hospitals struggled as medical equipment designed by humans began showing error messages no one understood. In deep space, a passenger liner drifted helplessly. Captain Yax stared at the control panels covered with flashing red lights. "How long until rescue?" asked his first officer. "Communications are down," the captain replied grimly. "And without working navigation beacons, rescue ships won't know where to look." The ship had been traveling from the outer colonies when its engines failed. The passengers, over 2,000 people from 12 different species, were still calm, but that wouldn't last as supplies dwindled. Back on the galactic capital, the council meeting continued into its 3rd day. Economic advisors painted an increasingly bleak picture. "The central banking system is showing signs of instability," said the head economist, a small green being with large eyes. "That system was integrated with human financial algorithms. Without proper maintenance, transactions are being lost or duplicated." "Can't we just rebuild these systems ourselves?" demanded a counselor. An engineer stepped forward. "We've tried. The human systems are incredibly complex. They used programming methods we don't fully understand, and they protected core functions with security measures that activate when we try to modify them." On the edges of council space, tensions between species grew. The Vixari accused the Pellerin Confederation of hoarding resources. The Exolians closed their borders after 3 relief ships were attacked by pirates. Smaller worlds began to suffer as supply chains crumbled. In his small apartment near the council building, Zachary Moore reviewed the latest reports with growing concern. His Loxian wife entered, her expression worried. "It's getting worse, isn't it?" she asked. Zachary nodded. The council wasted years denying the problem. Now they're scrambling to fix systems they never bothered to understand. "Do you ever regret staying?" she asked quietly. Zachary looked out the window at the once gleaming capital city, now with sections dark due to power failures. "Sometimes, but someone needed to witness this. Someone needed to record what happens when cooperation fails." He touched a hidden communicator on his wrist, sending yet another encrypted message toward the distant coordinates where humanity had gone. Like his previous messages, he received no response. But he kept sending them, hoping that someday, humans might return to help rebuild what was breaking apart. In the darkness of space, more navigation beacons winked out, leaving travelers to guide themselves by the light of distant stars. The quiet library on Centaurus Station was one of the few places still functioning properly in council space. Catherine Walsh sat among ancient paper books, preferring their reliability to the failing digital systems. As one of the last humans in this sector, she had grown used to solitude. The doors slid open. Catherine looked up to see a group of aliens enter. Their leader, A tall blue-skinned being named Exorthek approached her table. "You are human, Catherine Walsh?" Orthek asked. Catherine closed her book. "I am. And you're from the Scholars Guild of Axlon, judging by your robes." Torthak nodded. "We have traveled far to find you. We need your help." The group settled around her table. Besides Exorthak, there were 4 other alien scholars from different species. All looked tired and worried. "The systems continue to fail," said a small furry scholar. "Our worlds are suffering. Trade routes are dangerous. Medical facilities lose power. Even food production is affected." Catherine looked at each of them. "And you think I can help?" "You worked with the human engineer Peter Collins," Sorthak said. "The one who built the quantum communications network. Our records show you were his assistant." Catherine hadn't heard Peter's name spoken aloud in years. "That was a long time ago." "Please," said another scholar, her scales shimmering in the library light. "People are dying. We need to understand what happened. Why did humans build systems that would fail?" Catherine sighed and pointed to empty chairs. "Sit. This will take some time." When they were settled, Catherine pulled out an old tablet. "First, you need to understand something. Humans didn't build systems to fail. We built them to be maintained." She showed them images of human engineers working on massive projects across the galaxy. For 50 years, humans served as the maintenance crews for the galaxy's infrastructure. We designed the systems, yes, but we also kept them running. Not because we had to, but because we wanted to help. "But why did the Council not know this?" asked Exorthak. Catherine laughed softly. "Oh, they knew. They just didn't value it. Look at these." She showed them Council meeting records. Humans requesting recognition for their work, being dismissed. Budget cuts to human engineering departments. Regulations restricting human access to their own systems. The Council saw humans as primitive newcomers who should be grateful for inclusion in galactic society. Our contributions were expected but never respected. The scholars looked at each other uncomfortably. 10 years before the Exodus, we started planning, Catherine continued. Not out of spite, but necessity. We saw how the Council treated us. We understood that we would never be true partners in this galaxy. "You left maintenance backdoors in the systems," said the furry scholar, understanding dawning in his eyes. Catherine nodded. "We built everything with maintenance cycles. As long as humans were around to perform updates, everything worked fine. But we knew someday we might need to leave." "But where did you go?" asked Exorthak. Catherine stood and walked to a window overlooking space. "That I cannot tell you. But I can show you this." She handed Xorthak a small data crystal. "These are basic maintenance protocols for some of the failing systems. Not enough to fix everything, but enough to buy you time." "Time for what?" asked the scaled scholar. "Time to learn the most important lesson. No species survives alone. The Council believed they could take without giving, benefit without contributing. They were wrong." Xorthak pocketed the crystal carefully. "Will humans ever return?" Catherine turned back to the window. "That depends on what the galaxy learns from their absence." As the scholars prepared to leave, Catherine added, "The systems weren't designed to punish. They were designed to teach. Every failure is a lesson about interdependence." After they departed, Catherine touched a hidden communicator similar to Zachary's. She sent a brief message reporting the scholar's visit. This time, unlike Zachary's attempts, she received a response. A single line of text that made her smile slightly. "Phase 1 complete. Stand by for Phase 2. Far beyond Council space, something was happening. The humans hadn't just left. They were preparing." Alarms rang throughout the Galactic Council headquarters. Emergency lights flashed as delegates rushed into the main chamber. 7 years had passed since the humans departed, and the crisis had reached a breaking point. The council leader, looking older and more tired than ever, called the session to order. "Representatives of the Galactic Council, we face unprecedented challenges. The situation grows worse by the day." Screens around the chamber displayed reports from across the galaxy. Food shortages on 57 worlds. Medical system failures on hundreds more. 32 ships lost in deep space this month alone. The maintenance protocols provided by human Catherine Walsh have helped slow the failures, reported a technical advisor. But they are not enough. We need more. The council leader's eyes narrowed. Has she been questioned further? She refuses to share more information, replied a security officer. She says we have not yet learned our lesson. From the back of the chamber, a voice called out. Perhaps it's time you listen to those of us who remained. Heads turned to see Eric Foster, the representative of New Haven, a small human colony where a few thousand humans still lived. For years, the council had ignored his requests to speak. The human Foster has not been recognized, the council leader said dismissively. A Pellaran delegate stood. I move that we hear him. We have nothing left to lose. After a quick vote, Eric was allowed to approach the speaking platform. He was a young man who had been born in council space and chosen to stay when others left. For 7 years, you've tried to fix what's broken without understanding why it breaks, Eric began. You've traced the problems to human-built systems, but you haven't asked the right questions. He activated the platform's display, showing images of human engineers working across the galaxy decades ago. Humans didn't just build these systems. We designed them to require regular updates and maintenance, not as a trap, but as a philosophy. Explain, demanded the council leader. My people believe that systems without oversight become dangerous. Technology without accountability leads to disaster. Every system we built included what we call maintenance awareness. They need regular human attention to function correctly. Murmurs spread through the chamber. That's why you can't simply reverse engineer our technology, Eric continued. The maintenance requirements are built into the core design, not as a failing, but as a feature. A Vixari representative pounded his fist on the table. Your people deliberately sabotaged the galaxy. Eric shook his head. No, we built a galaxy that required cooperation to function. You chose to ignore that requirement. He showed new images, council records of human proposals for training programs, knowledge-sharing initiatives, and collaborative maintenance teams, all rejected by the council over the years. You saw our need to maintain these systems as a weakness to exploit. You thought you could benefit from human innovation while keeping us subordinate. You were wrong. Deep silence fell over the chamber. The worst is yet to come, Eric said quietly. The deep space monitoring stations are beginning to fail. Do you know what they monitor? No one answered. They watch the barriers between our galaxy and others. They scan for threats from beyond. Humans built them because we detected something approaching 50 years ago. Something dangerous. Fear rippled through the assembly. The humans didn't just leave because you mistreated them, Eric continued. They left to prepare. The question is not whether humans will return. The question is whether you'll be worthy of their help when the real threat arrives. A junior technician burst into the chamber, interrupting the session. Council leader, the deep space station in Sector 12 sent a final transmission before failing. We've detected massive energy readings outside the galaxy. Eric's expression hardened. It begins. The council leader stared at Eric, finally understanding the magnitude of what was happening. What can we do? Find Zachary Moore and Catherine Walsh, Eric said. Tell them it's time for Phase 2. Maybe the humans will listen. As the emergency session continued, Eric sent a private message to Catherine. They're finally afraid enough to listen. The real work begins now. In the vast darkness beyond the galaxy's edge, something immense moved closer. Deep beneath the Galactic Council headquarters, in archives rarely visited, a team of researchers worked frantically. The Council had ordered them to find any information about the threat Eric Foster had mentioned, any clue about what humans knew that the rest of the galaxy didn't. Linda Reeves led the research team. Her office was filled with ancient data storage devices and paper documents. For 2 weeks, they had searched without success. "There must be something here," she said, pushing aside another stack of files. Humans were careful record keepers. A young Exolian assistant called from across the room. "Linda, I found something." The assistant held up an old recording device. It was covered in dust and looked like it hadn't been activated in decades. Linda took it carefully and pressed the play button. A hologram appeared. A human woman in diplomatic uniform. The date stamp showed it was from 60 years ago. "This is Ambassador Samantha Clark, Earth Diplomatic Corps. Final address to the Galactic Council. Year 2387. The researchers gathered around as the message played. "Honored council members," the hologram continued. "Today I speak of matters you have chosen to ignore for 20 years. Our deep space telescopes have detected something approaching our galaxy, an energy signature unlike anything we've seen before. We believe it to be an advanced civilization, or force with unknown intentions." Linda glanced at her team. This matched what Eric had claimed. "We proposed a joint defense initiative 5 times, Samantha's hologram continued. 5 times you voted it down. You called it a human paranoia and warmongering. Today, I make one final plea. The threat will reach our galaxy in approximately 80 years. Without preparation, we may all face extinction." The hologram showed star charts and energy readings that meant little to the modern researchers. "If you continue to ignore this threat, humanity will act alone. We will build what defenses we can. We will prepare as best we are able. But know this, a divided galaxy cannot stand against what comes. Remember these words when the time comes. Only together will we survive." The recording ended. The room fell silent. "The date," Linda whispered. "This was recorded 20 years before humans started building the deep space monitoring stations, and 50 years before they left." "They were planning that far ahead?" asked one researcher. "They had to," Linda replied. No one would listen. The team brought their findings to the council, which had been in continuous emergency session since Eric Foster's revelation. The council leader watched the recording with growing horror. "We called it human paranoia," the leader admitted. "We dismissed their warnings." Zachary Moore, now working closely with the council, stood at the back of the chamber. "Humans saw the threat. We tried to warn you. When you wouldn't listen, we built what defenses we could, the monitoring stations. But we knew it wouldn't be enough. So you left us to face this threat alone," demanded a counselor. "No," Catherine Walsh said, entering the chamber. "We left to build what couldn't be built here, under your restrictions and regulations." She activated a small device. A 3-dimensional map appeared, showing the space beyond the galaxy's edge. "This is what our long-range scouts have detected. Massive construction projects. Energy signatures that dwarf anything in council space." The council stared at the images in silence. "Are those human ships?" asked the Pellerin delegate. "Some of them," Catherine replied. "Others are stations, defensive positions, research facilities, things we couldn't build while bound by council restrictions. All this time," Zachary added, "while you thought humans had simply abandoned the galaxy, we were preparing, building, planning." Catherine's device beeped. She checked it and looked at Zachary meaningfully. "It's time," she said. "Phase 2 is complete. Our fleet is ready." "Ready for what?" asked the council leader. Catherine's eyes were solemn. "To save a galaxy that never appreciated us, whether you deserve it or not." The council expedition ship Last Hope traveled through the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge. It carried representatives from 12 species, along with Zachary Moore and Catherine Walsh. The ship was the newest in the council fleet, yet even its systems showed signs of strain after 8 days of travel. "How much farther?" asked the Vixari captain, looking at Catherine. She checked her personal device. "We're close. Slow to half speed." In the observation deck, Council Leader Keck stood with Zachary, watching the endless black of deep space. Stars were fewer here, at the edge of the galaxy. For 60 years, your people knew about the approaching threat, Kex said quietly. For 60 years, you prepared while we ignored you. Zachary nodded. We tried to warn you. Many times. Why help us now? Kex asked. After how we treated humans, you could have simply saved yourselves. Before Zachary could answer, Catherine's voice came over the ship's system. All personnel to observation stations. Contact in 5 minutes. The ship slowed further. The darkness ahead seemed to shift. Then light bloomed in the distance. Not the light of stars, but of massive structures. As they drew closer, the expedition team gasped collectively. Enormous stations floated in space, each larger than the biggest Council space dock. Between them moved ships of a design no one recognized. Some were clearly built for defense, bristling with weapon systems. Others appeared to be research vessels or supply ships. By the ancient stars, whispered Kex, your people built all this in just 7 years. We had plans ready long before we left, Catherine explained. And without Council regulations limiting our technology, we worked faster than you can imagine. A transmission came through. A human face appeared on the main screen. A woman in a uniform none of the Council members recognized. Council vessel, this is Captain Nickel Harris of the human vessel New Horizon. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose. Catherine stepped forward. Captain Harris, this is Catherine Walsh. We bring Council representatives as discussed in Protocol 7. There was a pause. Then, confirmed Walsh. Proceed to docking coordinates. As the last hope approached, the true scale of the human construction became clear. The stations were cities in space, housing what must be millions of people. The ships moved with precision that Council vessels could never match. After docking with the central station, the Council delegation was escorted to a large meeting room. The walls were transparent, showing the vastness of space and the human fleet beyond. Captain Harris entered with several other humans in similar uniforms. The Council representatives stood nervously. Welcome to New Horizon Station, said Captain Harris. You're the first Council delegation to see what humanity has built. Why show us now? Asked Kex. Because time is running out, Harris replied. She activated a display showing deep space readings. The entity approaching our galaxy has accelerated. Our calculations show it will arrive in less than 2 years, not the 5 we originally projected. The display showed something massive moving through space, not a fleet or a ship, but something else entirely. Something alive yet mechanical, vast beyond comprehension. What is that? Asked the Council scientist. We don't know exactly, Harris admitted. But we've detected similar patterns in old records from other galaxies that went dark. Whatever it is, it consumes, it destroys, and it's heading straight for us. Catherine stepped forward. Humanity left the Council because we saw no future in a galaxy that wouldn't prepare for this threat. We needed to build, to prepare without restrictions, without politics delaying every decision. And now? Asked Kex. Now we offer a choice, Captain Harris said. Continue alone with your failing systems and divided peoples, or join with humanity, reform the Council, and face this threat together. Zachary looked at the Council leader. This is what we've been working toward. Not abandonment, but preparation. The question is, will you fight alongside us as equals, or hold to old prejudices even as the galaxy faces extinction? Outside the station, the human fleet continued to grow as more ships arrived from distant construction yards. A force unlike anything the Council had ever imagined, built by the species they had dismissed as primitive and unimportant. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from every member species packed the room, while billions more watched the emergency broadcast across thousands of worlds. 9 days had passed since the Council expedition returned from beyond the galaxy's edge with news of the approaching threat and the human fleet. Riots had broken out on dozens of planets. Food shortages worsened as more systems failed. Hospital ships orbited the worst affected worlds, but they couldn't help everyone. The galaxy was falling apart. Council leader Keck stood at the central platform. The report from our expedition has been shared with all of you. The threat is real, and it is coming. Our only hope lies with the humans we once dismissed. Angry shouts filled the chamber. Many blamed humans for their current troubles. Others feared this was all a trick. Silence. Keck shouted. Your anger changes nothing. The humans built beyond the rim because we gave them no choice. Now they offer help, despite how we treated them. Before anyone could respond, every screen in the chamber suddenly activated. The same happened across the galaxy, on personal devices, public displays, and ship monitors. A single human face appeared, a man with gray hair and calm eyes. People of the Galactic Council, I am Daniel Wright, elected leader of the Human Alliance. I speak to you from New Horizon Station beyond your galaxy's edge. The room fell silent. 8 years ago, humanity departed Council space. We left behind systems that required maintenance, not as a trap, but as a philosophy. Technology without oversight becomes dangerous. Power without accountability leads to tyranny. Images appeared beside him. Massive stations, shipyards, and defense platforms. While your worlds argued and your systems failed, we built. We prepared for the threat your council refused to acknowledge for 60 years. The image changed to show the approaching entity, a vast, dark mass moving through space. This is what comes for us all. We call it the Devourer. It has consumed 3 galaxies before ours. It cannot be reasoned with. It can only be fought. Daniel's expression softened slightly. Humanity is ready to return. We offer our knowledge, our technology, and our help to rebuild what is broken. We will stand with you against the Devourer. The council chamber erupted in hopeful murmurs. But we have conditions, Daniel continued. The old council must end. A new covenant must be formed, one where all species stand as equals, one where contribution is valued over age or tradition, one where humanity and all others work together, not as masters and servants, but as partners. Kex looked around the chamber, seeing the mix of hope and suspicion on many faces. What choice do we have? He asked quietly. As if hearing him, Daniel smiled slightly. You are wondering if you have a choice. You do. You can refuse our help. You can face the Devourer alone, with your failing systems and divided peoples. Or you can accept that the galaxy must change to survive. Daniel looked directly into the camera. We departed to teach you a lesson about interdependence, about respect, about the true meaning of civilization. The question is, have you learned it? The transmission ended. The chamber remained silent for several long moments. Then Catherine Walsh stepped forward. She placed a document on the central platform. This is the new covenant prepared by human diplomats with input from those council species who were willing to listen. It establishes a new form of galactic government, one based on contribution, not age or military power. Zachary Moore joined her. The human fleet will arrive in council space in 3 days. They'd bring engineers to help repair critical systems. They'd bring supplies for struggling worlds. They'd bring weapons to fight the Devourer. Kex picked up the document and read the first line aloud. We, the peoples of the galaxy, united in purpose if not in form, do hereby establish this covenant of mutual respect and protection. He looked up at the assembled representatives. The humans departed, and we realized too late what had happened. Now they return, offering us salvation. The question is, are we wise enough to accept it? At the edge of the galaxy, the first human ships appeared, their lights shining like new stars against the darkness. Not as conquerors, but as equals, ready to fight alongside those who had once rejected them. The lesson had been harsh, but perhaps it had been learned in time.